So when you mention story, for example, you showed the one picture card with the sentence underneath, like Papa and the man get the stamp in the pen. Yeah. You call it just a small short story.
Well, no, it would be a whole book. It would be like one of
really?
these.
Oh, okay.
Here, let me pass these around here. That would just be one page from one story. But what they would try to work through, that one is like the first one in the series, and this would be like the last one. So you could sort of.
So this is for the grade 2.
Yeah, I would start in grade 3 with that,
grade 3.
and then move up to hopefully, if everything goes along, move up to grade 6. With that one.
So how many of this kind of reading do you give to the 3rd grade?
With the 3rd grade, well, let's see. One book, when you start out, it takes longer. But I can get through a class of around 30 students in about 3 classes of reading. We can have all of them present and read to me. And then we have 1 class where we go over the thing. So about 4 classes could cover the whole book. Pre-reading, teaching of grammar, maybe 1 or 2 classes. So 4 to 5 classes per book. And then each time we get into a new subject, it would be a new book-centered theme, and then move on like that.
So it's about 7, 8 books a year.
Yeah, let's see, how did we work out the proposal here? Let's see. Yeah, that's right. From the 3rd. Actually, you could get about 3, 4, maybe even 5 books a semester, I think. So 6 per year, 6. Maybe you could get through 11 books in a year, I think.
So what is the highest level of the reading of this sort?
It's this other one that I'm passing around there. That would be like one of the highest level ones.
And it's also based on the phonics.
Yes, it's all the same system. Like I just bought I bought a license with readingAtoZ.com to use their books. I know there are other readers on this system, so I can't recommend any one particular one, but this is the one that struck me as most applicable.
So they don't use the sight word other than that?
No, they do. I do pre-teach. That's part of the pre-teaching. I pre-teach the non-phonics words, like the, are, and is. But it's nice because I try to only teach, the way the system works out, I only have to teach like maybe 1 or 2 of those words per a unit, and it's fairly easy for them to get.
Then how do you incorporate the reading materials or the story or the English expressions into the classroom interaction?
Into the classroom? Well, like before we teach the story, I would like go through and pick out the new grammatical elements, and then we would do some kind of game, kind of structured around any number of English games, like either available, you could find anywhere. The standard ELT type of fare. You could use those as long as they're communicative activity to teach that principle. Like if I'm teaching can, maybe have a can-centered game or and-centered game. Or if like I'm teaching basic noun groups, I might use these things here so they can sort of practice playing with the words to make strange combinations. I would do anything like that, and then as we're teaching the reading I would only use for part of my time, like half of the time I would use for the actual, where they try to work their way through the books and present, and the rest of the time they would go forward. Now, of course, while you're going through and helping kids individually like this, the other kids need to stay on task, so you need to make sure that if they've already presented, then it's important to have some other activity that they can work on individually. At early stages, it's hard to do more than just coloring sheets, but as they get a little bit more advanced, then you can start having more activities where they're actually maybe working through worksheets or puzzle games to further work it on.
So you use English all the time for interaction, instruction?
Yeah, as much as possible. When I'm explaining how to do something, I use Japanese. Or when I'm working through the comprehension part, I want them to tell me in Japanese, because I want to make sure they understand basically what it is. But it doesn't have to be a perfect translation of what's going on. As long as they can sort of point out the major characters and point out the major action of the page, whatever they're working on, they're going through the story, they get the basic idea of it, then that's it's fine. And as much as possible, I use English that they would already know. Try not to use too much English that they wouldn't know, because that's getting their brains working in a bunch of different directions at once, I think. And, it's partially personal preference. I know the jury's still out on Japanese in the classroom. So.
And finally, do you give some homework to the students?
I try to. It depends on the homeroom teacher I'm working with as to how open they are to that. So some classes I am able to actually get to do that, and other classes I don't. It really depends also on the subject matter, the material, like how well they're doing it. If I feel that they don't need homework, then I don't do it. But if I feel that they need to look at this again so they don't forget it, then I'll give something.
I have very practical questions.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
I always ask too many questions.
Oh, no problem.
First, I teach in a village. I have 12 kids, from 6 to 12. And now, my question is, yours curriculum service grade first, right?
Yeah.
First grade. If the third grade, this school, the primary school right next to my house, start teaching a grade third grader to the third graders. How do you teach? Do you skip first and second? Are you going to a third? Or would you concentrate?
I think I would try to concentrate, because I think before you get into reading, the important thing is that they need to have at least a basic set of vocabulary that they can discover in the books. Because even especially with a native speaker, they're going to have that big 6,000 word vocabulary before they get into reading study in school. So to try to cut down the number of words that we would have to pre-teach, we would have to, well, first look at the books that you're going to eventually teach them, but before that, teach like communicatively some words, like some basic sets like colors and maybe shapes and maybe some nouns. And if you're dealing with third graders, you might want to condense those groups down to just get basic core initial keys concepts, enough to jump into the books eventually. But with older kids, you might be able to do that in a little bit more, in a shorter time span. First and second grade, it's really hard to move too fast through things. You need to take time with them. But I think once they get into third, they can move a little bit faster. Once you get into fourth grade, fifth grade, you can actually condense quite a bit, I think. Because they can actually start thinking about language at that point. But it needs some pre-teaching before you get into a reading program, I think, to understand, to at least have a basic vocabulary.
Another question? What are these? The number 4, 3?
I'm sorry, those are grade, the curriculum for the grades. Did they come out well?
No, for example, the first grade, first term orientation 4. What does 4?
4, I'm sorry, that would be like the, I'm sorry, I should explain that a little better. That'd be like the amount of classes I would try to spend on it. Yeah, let me just sort of explain how I designated that stuff. I think I skipped over that when I was talking about it. Now, like the first and second grade, that's just the number of classes that would be in there. This sheet, this area, this would be the actual content that I would teach in those classes. Like for orientation, I'd be teaching just basic, structural commands in the classroom and politeness, and then these words, of course, would all be mainly selected from the books, but I might have added things to make it a complete set so that it's easier to teach. And then when we're looking at the third and fourth grade, the way it's structured is around the book sequence. So each thing would have, like, aside from the reading orientation, where I'm teaching just the basic 5 sounds and how to focus on what the important words are, like that cat under table example type of things. From then on, it would be each unit would be centered around a story, so that the story name, and then I would have which phonic is being introduced, like NAPCD or M plus M or plus S, these would be the phonics that I would add. And then I have sort of in brackets there the grammatical point that I would try to teach. The review assessment classes, I just, within the constraints of the program, I wanted to schedule, like in each semester, at least a couple classes to allow the teacher sort of leeway to assess the children or to take a little bit extra time with what needs to be taken extra time with. So there's a little bit of flexibility that should be built into the system.